It's proposed by Councillor John Merry and seconded by Councillor Bill Hines that Council appoint Councillor Karen Garrido as Chair for this extraordinary meeting of Council. So if we just ask Councillor Merry to propose that.
In the absence of the Ceremonial Mayor and the Deputy Ceremonial Mayor, I am proposing the immediate past Mayor, Councillor Garrido, to take the chair for this meeting.
That's seconded. That's agreed. Councillor Garrido, Karen Garrido, would you like to take the chair, please? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning. Before we start, can I ask that the members here stand and join me in a minute's silence of reflection for the victims of the recent incidents of terrorism in Spain and Finland. Is there any announcements or special business that you wish to use today? I have not been notified of any. No? Thank you. Any apologies for absence for the council meeting? Councillor Lewis.
Yes, it was I have seen. Sorry. I have, sorry,
Thank you. Councillor Cowan, Councillor Longshaw, Councillor Dobbs, Hamilton, Ord, Masheter, Warner, Humphreys, Critchley and Hesling.
Thank you, everybody. Declarations of interest. Do any members have any personal, prejudicial or disclosable pecuniary interests that they need to declare for this meeting? No, thank you very much. We then move on to the main item, business of the council. That's item 5, fire safety works in Pendleton. The City Mayor and the Deputy Mayor are asked to present this report in regards to the fire safety works in Pendleton, after which I will permit members to ask questions and comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed that the average age of the Conservative benches has got considerably younger, and I must admit that I did have second thoughts about proposing you for chair when I saw that Councillor Robin Garrido would be left in charge of the children, actually, so I hope he manages okay. This is not a meeting that I find terribly easy, Chair. The tragic events that have happened at Grenfell, have meant that up and down the country, councils and housing associations and other people are having to decide what to do about the cladding on their particular blocks. And we're no exception to that, but we are probably in the vanguard of those people trying to deal with it. And I want to pay particular tribute to the officers of this council who are dealing with a very complex situation, who are in daily communication with me about the problems that we are encountering, and are actually driven by a determination to ensure that the residents of the Pendleton blocks that we are directly responsible for are looked after and cared for. Some of you may have had the privilege, along with me, of attending a public meeting last night about this particular incident. And the issue there that was raised with me was, why was I not, and the City Council, rather than borrowing the money, taking the issue up with government and fighting the government and seeing an end to the Conservative government? Well, as you appreciate, no one on the Labour benches would like that to happen more than the rest of us, the Mayor and myself. But there is something that is incredibly important to me, and I think this meeting reflects that. And I will not use people, ordinary people, as pawns in some sort of political game. I will not leave the people of those blocks to rot while we sort out who is responsible, who should pay the ultimate bill, and who should actually cough up the money. There is going to be litigation involved in this. I have very little doubt about this, and I don't want to talk and say anything that would prejudice that litigation, even if Miranda would let me. But the fact is that we cannot afford to wait for government either to compensate us, as we believe that they should do, or that the litigation gets settled, which will take years, while those tenants and residents are actually looked after. And I want to suggest to this council that there are 3 criteria which we've lived by and applied to this particular issue. The first is the safety of Salford residents comes before anything else. So it comes before, and Councillor Hines would agree with me, even though he might be reluctant to do so, it comes before cash, quite frankly. If there is safety of people, we will put that first in every instance. The second thing which applies to this criteria is the welfare of those people in those blocks. And I've been in constant touch with the councillors who, if I may say so, have done a very good job in representing those people and telling me when there are particular problems and needs that actually need to be looked at. Councillor Warmisham always seems to couple it with slurs on my football team, but that's beside the point. But he does actually care, and Councillor Reynolds and Councillor Longshore care deeply about the welfare of those residents. So I want to put the welfare of those residents above that. However, the safety of those residents comes even before the inconvenience to the residents. So I want to apologise in advance, because some of this safety work that we will require to do will mean additional inconvenience to the residents, but it has to be done in order that their safety can be safeguarded. And the third issue is, of course, trying to safeguard the resources of this City Council. And we have regard to that, but we have regard to safety and welfare above that, and those needs above that. So I'm asking you to authorise the Council to draw up to, and it's a bit like asking for an overdraft, I suppose, because we don't intend necessarily to use the whole of this amount, right, to actually draw up to £25 million. That is the most feasible estimate we have of the maximum costs involved. We have to, at the very least, replace the cladding that has been shown to be faulty. And the actual solution to that is still being tested, and we're still trying to find the actual solution. And there will be other work that needs to be done as well. We will have to, no doubt, continue the safety work that is already taking place in the blocks to make sure that is undertaken. We will have to replace the cladding that has already been taken off with concrete boards that actually protect the insulation board underneath. And all this is going to cost money. And we are not admitting liability for that money, and I want to stress that today, and it's important that I say that to you, because what we actually did was we asked someone to design and build this system for us, and they warranted that this system was fit for purpose. Now, that litigation is going to take quite a long time to resolve. In the meantime, we've sort of come to an understanding that whilst the safety of people are concerned, that we will put that at the top of the list, rather than arguing about who finally pays the bill yet, because that's to be determined in the future. We will provide the necessary resources, along with PTOL, to ensure that the work can take place. And I would suggest to you that that is the finest exponent of the motto of this council. If you remember, the welfare of the people is the highest law. For us, right, making sure that that work is done in a timely manner, in a way that ensures the safety of the people of Salford, takes absolute priority over all the other responsibilities that we have in this particular area. I, of course, feel that the government response has been inadequate. I feel that other people may be liable in terms of what the ultimate responsibility is. But I am not going to shirk. I recommend to this council that we shirk responsibility for the well-being of the individuals of this city. As we always have, we will continue to fight for them and to make sure that they are safe and that they are looked after by this city council. I move the motion.
Thank you. Can I call on the City Mayor?
Sure. In kind of seconding the motion that's been moved by Councillor Merry, I'd like to pay tribute and thanks to the work that Councillor Merry has done over the last month or so in terms of chairing the goal meetings within the City Council. Councillor Merry has taken this exceptionally seriously, and it's the work he's been doing which has resulted in the report that's been brought to Council today. Councillor Merry is absolutely right when he says that the welfare of the people is the highest law. As many of you know, the decision I took before we actually had the government testing results back was to get the cladding off those blocks as soon as we possibly could. And the reason I took that decision was because, speaking with our building team within the City Council, we knew that this was ACM and it was unlikely to meet the standards required. As Councillor Merry has highlighted, there will be litigation and that will take some time to conclude. But in the short term, what we must ensure is that the safety of the people who live in the tower blocks in Pendleton and other parts of Salford is of absolute paramount importance. And we can't rest on our laurels while we have political rows and arguments with the government over liability, or liability within the context of the Private Finance Initiative. We have to act now, and that's why we've called this emergency council meeting. This decision cannot be taken by myself, otherwise it would have been. This decision can only be taken by your endorsement as full council. So I have absolutely no hesitation in recommending the decision to you to obviously, for cash flow purposes, allow up to £25 million to be used to remedy the situation on those 9 blocks in Pendleton. I'd also like to thank the other registered social providers within the city, because what's been really interesting is we've collaborated around all of this and we've had regular dialogue with all housing providers in the city. We've also communicated regularly with residents and we've also communicated regularly with yourselves. This is of absolute importance and this is the #1 priority of the City Council at the moment. Councillor Merry also talked about this not being a political argument with the government in terms of trying to ascertain liability in the short term. What I will say to Council is I am in regular dialogue with the Secretary of State for the Department of Communities and Local Government. We've exchanged 2 letters so far. We're now on to our 3rd. He sent me a pro forma recently, which we're in the process of completing and returning back to the Department for Communities and Local Government. Just want to reassure this Council that I will be pursuing government on this issue, because I do think there are questions to be asked about how on earth this material found its way onto the British market in the first place for people like local authorities to pursue. But in the short term, I have absolutely no hesitation in seconding and recommending the paper to you today, and I hope that you will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I start by thanking you for chairing this important meeting at such short notice? I know you have got many issues at the moment, and we on this side do appreciate that you putting yourself out to attend today, as it is an important meeting. Secondly, can I also thank Councillor Merry and the City Mayor for their update today. Can I also thank them for the continual updates that they brief me personally. It's much obliged and it's very useful. Can I also welcome the 3 new members today, 2 on this side and 1 on that side. And I don't know quite what this control is in front of me, because I was a bit late for the training, but I'm rather hoping it will be a step to eliminate council meetings in the future. We can have one of these at home and do it all from home, in the comfort of the home. I'm sure it will be welcomed by most members. But Councillor Merry and the City Mayor is absolutely right. It's about people. We are the owners of those blocks that failed the test, and we must do all in our power to make sure that they are kept safe. And this is what we are going to do, but to do it, we need the funds. We haven't got the funds in our back pockets. We will have to borrow the money, and we'll worry about who's to blame and what's to blame later. And I would think it'll be very much later, but we must get on with the work. I totally support the council in this endeavour. We're doing the right thing. It's the only thing. I won't say anything else. Thank you very much.
And
Thank you, Chair. I don't think there'll be anybody in this chamber today that would be opposing the proposals that Councillor Merry and the City Mayor have put before us. If you can remember at the last council meeting, I made the comment of the fact that we could be in the £25 million zone. And of course, when the Mayor presented the budget in February with the capital programme, that wouldn't have been accounted for in any way. And therefore, that's why we need this special meeting today to do that. Again, as has been explained, that money will not be drawn at one foul swoop. It will be when needed. But we've got to have that ability to be able to do that. Things about welfare of the people, and when the Mayor, because I was on my holiday when the Grenfell disaster took place, and the Mayor immediately took the actions that he did, and I emailed him saying I supported that. But always conscious, and I wouldn't in the position I'm in, of what the monies would be, even at that early stage. And I think that we do need, of course, to understand exactly, as we move along, how money is being spent, so we're well aware if that's the case. And I've asked the Mayor and John, as he's chairing the Gold meeting, to be able to give me that information. But there's no question at all about it. And I understand, going back to the meeting that John was at last night, people who play games with other people's welfare and rights for their own political purpose have no place in the political democracy of this country. I have my strong views, and I would expect them to have the strong views. But to use people in that way is just not right at all. And to attack this city council and the mayor and others who immediately took action because they cared about people, and then to be told that they don't care about people is absolutely disgusting. And we should make that clear time and time again. What the mayor and John, who is obviously chairing the GO meeting, have continually done, and Councillor Reynolds, Councillor Longshore, Councillor Warmisham, have continually took up the cases of the residents of those blocks. And to be accused of doing nothing is shameful. Absolutely shameful. Yes, there will be a lot of questions, as I said last time, at the last council meeting. The more questions you ask, the more questions it produces, and will do, continually. But let's not move away from the fact that we care about the people in those blocks, and the mayor did the right decision, and I believe that by supporting the capital borrowing that we need to do now is the right decision. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hines. Can I call on Councillor Volkine?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I read this report in great detail, and I then had several questions and several comments that I wanted to make to Councillor Merry. And he was the first one that welcomed me to come to his office and discuss it. And I'd like to tell the Council that every I has been dotted, every T has been crossed, and Councillor Merry and the staff of this Council have done an absolutely superb job in putting together this proposal, and without doubt I fully support it. We are all Salfordians. I was elected to represent Swinton South, but in the greater context of things, I represent the people of Salford, and so does everyone else in this council. We owe a duty of care to everyone that lives in this city. And in owing a duty of care to everyone that lives in this city, whether you live in your own property, or whether you live in a rented property, or whether you live in a high-rise block of flats, we owe a duty of care. And I think the council has gone beyond its actual duty, because we realise the importance of the citizens of Salford. And without doubt, I thoroughly recommend this proposal to the council, and I would like to move it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Volkine. Councillor Warmisham.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reiterate everything that's been said already, particularly for the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor. They've just been fantastic support for us as ward members in Langwither. They've got us through some tough times. But most of all, I want to say a big, big thank you again, as I did at last council, to the people in Pendleton. They have just been absolutely superb. You know, it could have been an awful lot worse, but I think because of the work that we've done, we've got a real decent communication strategy, getting messages out to the people, telling them what's being done, asking them to feed back to us, and I just think it's been second to none. As others have said, to use this as a political football is disgusting. I just find it absolutely horrendous. People know my politics, and I could never ever do what some of those people did last night and try and use this just to score political points. I just find it horrific. They're not people that I've had phone calls in the middle of the night because people are literally scared. There was a power cut on one of the blocks and people thought something was happening, so we were getting phone calls in the middle of the night. That's the sort of things that it's really, really frightened people. And we've got to do as elected members, we've got to be there for those people. That's what I'm elected for. I've represented that area for 27 years now, and so it means an awful lot to me. So, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Councillor Warmisham, thank you very much. Councillor Garrido.
Thank you, Chair. Needless to say, I agree with everything that has been said, both by the City Mayor, the Deputy, and in particular Councillor Hines and Councillor Warmisham. In fact, until Councillor Hines spoke, I wasn't actually going to get up and say anything. But I just felt it was really important that we align ourselves with the comments made by Councillor Hines and by Councillor Warmisham. I wasn't at the meeting yesterday, but I can imagine from what's been said that it wasn't very palatable. And I don't think some people appreciated the amount of work that's been done by the leaders of this council. There are times when you criticise and there are times when you don't. This is one of those times when we should all get behind each other, support each other, and say that a good job has been done in very difficult circumstances. And I really do think that needs to be made very firmly. Anybody that says otherwise, I think needs to be very firmly put down and told very clearly that they are incorrect. Can I just also say one or two other things, and that is that the council has acted, as we've heard, with huge compassion, and I think that's also been extended to the other two organisations within the city that have faced the same problems. Obviously, I refer to Salex and to the Forviva Group, which includes City West. And I think it's important that we recognise the partnership which I believe has been formed during this period, where everybody's kept everybody else informed of what's been going on, and the other two organisations have also moved very quickly in trying to resolve the problems and also make similar financial arrangements available. I do hope, Chair, that we don't just have to resort to legal remedies. I do hope that some of these contractors will have the compassion and morality to actually come forward and admit that they have a responsibility, and that without going through a very expensive process of legal proceedings and so on, that they do actually come forward with the funding or the in-kind work that needs to be done to actually replace these panels. And I think we should actually try and persuade them to do that. I know in the case of Forviva, a couple of the contractors have already agreed to do work on that basis. I'm sure if we try and push down that particular channel, they could actually speed things up. Thank you.
Is anybody else wishing to speak or comment? No? Thank you. Then I will... Sorry, Councillor Wheeler.
Ta-da. Yeah. No, it's just a quick one, because we've mentioned, quite rightly, what's happening with Pendleton Together and Salix and City West. But the area that I'm a bit worried about, because it could slip through the net if we're not careful, is the privately owned blocks, some of which are on the precinct, scattered through. There's got to be some sort of checking mechanism to make sure they're being dealt with properly, because they're the ones most likely to slip through the net. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. I think the City Mayor would like to comment on that.
Yeah, this is on our radar, and we are absolutely trying to address this situation. So Chris Finlay, one of our officers in the City Council, has written to all the private block owners he's aware of, but obviously it's only as good as the information he's got. Also, at GM level, as you know, I'm chairing the high-rise task force for Greater Manchester, asked by Andy Burnham. We've already met with probably about 30 or 40 private high-rise blocks within Greater Manchester. We've had one public meeting so far. We're going to continue to engage the private sector, but it's about the private sector engaging with us. There are structures there, but it's up to them to choose to engage with those structures that we've created. We're actively communicating this to all the contacts we've got. But as you can appreciate, when we talk about the private sector, we're talking about a whole host of different people here. We're talking about people providing services within those blocks. We're talking about the owners of those blocks. Some of these people don't actually live within Greater Manchester or Salford. And we're also talking about people who are interested in developing those blocks and have some sort of responsibility there. So just to reassure you, Councillor Wheeler, we are on with engaging the private sector meaningfully within all of this work. I've also been written to from one of the blocks that's failed a cladding test recently, who are asking the local authority and potentially the government for any financial support because they understand that they have to reclad their block. So we are engaging with them, but all I would say is it's up to them to engage with us as well. Thanks.
Thank you, City Mayor. Anybody else wishing to speak? Oh, come on, it's not been going very long, has it now? Right, the Council is recommended to agree the recommendations as stated in the report. Agree to Salford City Council using its borrowing powers to provide cash flow funding to effect the execution of a programme of works to the 9 blocks in Pendleton, for which the Council has responsibility, in the sum of up to £25 million, subject to confirmation of the scope, scale and solution regarding the works. Is the recommended agreed by Council? Could you please show? Unanimous. I think I can vote on that one. Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That concludes the meeting. And thank you for your attendance. Thank you.